Hi everyone, and welcome to this first video Bible study of 2024, January 2024 already. I can hear everyone saying, where's that year gone? So many people have already said that to me, but I hope you've had a lovely and peaceful Christmas, and I'll be praying that you all have a very blessed new year. Whatever challenges that face us in this new year, just remember God is always there with you, by your side, for us to support and care for us throughout everything we face this year. But let's hope it's a blessed, hopeful and loving new year. In this video we're going to be looking at a kind of statement come question, and that is, all things are possible. All things are possible. Or are they? Or are they? All things are possible. Well, if you want to have a look at that question statement and study it together and share your thoughts, please do stay with us, because that's what's coming up right now. So here we go with that big question, statement, whatever you want to call it. All things are possible. Or are they? Well, we're going to try and look at this in two parts, because obviously I believe there are two ways of looking at this, and then we can believe what we want to believe, prove what we want to prove, or just say it's all a load of old nonsense. But in theory, I would say, and certainly in practice from my experience, there are two ways of looking at this. The first one is that we look at it in a sense that, are all things possible without any other input from any outside forces or any other medium or whatever else we want to call it? Can we as human beings literally do anything? Are all things literally possible? And then in the second part of this section of the video, we're going to look at, well, what happens if there is something otherworldly, something supernatural, some extra power out there that can help us quite literally do anything, so that all things are possible, with that clause in there, all things are possible with some help, perhaps. In fact, both of those fall in that, because at the end of the day, if, say, for argument, we went on to be a professor at university, my guess would be, and I should imagine it's probably right, that you'd have had a fair bit of help on the way with degrees, masters, doctorates and so forth, teaching, and people that you've looked up to and learnt from. So trying to keep it at a level, so it's really just going to let you think about the things you want to think about and share with whoever you want to share them with us here on YouTube with the comments, or on the website, or on Facebook. So let's just have a look first of all at, are all things possible in a sense on our own? Well, I remember when I was growing up and I was very, very young, my mum in particular, I did hear my dad say it, you know, if you work hard, study and put a lot of effort in it, the world's your oyster. You can do anything you want to do. And of course it's good advice, it's encouraging, and it's moving us on to do better things for ourselves. And we can of course do that if we're sports people, or we're doctors, dentists, chefs, whatever whatever field of work we go into. The more effort we put into it, the more study, the more time we do it, we get better and better at it. And if that's what we want to do, we can get higher and higher in there. If we're sports people and we start very young and train and work hard at what we're doing, then obviously great things can be achieved. You only have to watch the news almost weekly now, and you can see records being broken that years ago no one would ever have thought you could jump that high or that long or run that fast. And of course all those things are achieving, you can achieve. However, you cannot do everything beyond a certain limit at this moment in time. Who knows what the future will bring? But for example, a human being on their own, with just trainers, shorts, whatever, the gear they've got on, every modern bit of gear they've got on, would not be able to run at 100 miles an hour. It's just impossible. If you had a power pack on, you might be able to, or in a supercar you might be able to, but you cannot run at 100 miles an hour. You would not be able to go out of your front door, run down the road, take off and fly over to Spain for the weekend. Yes, if you go to the airport and get on a plane, helicopter, go on a boat, whatever else, you may be able to do that. But you would not be able to flap your arms and fly across without some kind of other help again, some false wings or something, a jet-propelled power pack on, all those sort of things. But as human beings, just as we are, you would not be able to do that. You would not be able to live to over 150 years old. Or anywhere near that at the moment. Certainly if we put a limit on 200, we just can't do that. Who knows, in the future maybe we can, and if someone does a video like this in a few hundred years time, or even, who knows, a decade, 20 years, maybe you can. But at this point in time, you cannot do that. We cannot go on to be the King of England or the Queen of England, and there are certain things we can't do. Now, you might say that this is all being silly, but actually if we make a statement, all things are possible, and read it word for word, literally, all things are possible, then clearly they're not without some major input in. So with input into our lives, we can achieve great things, incredible things, things that wouldn't have been believed years ago. We see that all the time ourselves now with transport and medicine, science and everything else. We've moved on so far, but there are still things we can't do. So I'm going to leave it at that for now, because I'm sure you can think of things and argue back with things, but just generally, if we can try and accept, so we can move on into a discussion, that yes, we can do great things, incredible things, but not everything. All things as human beings are not actually possible. So let's just have a pause for a thought, and then we'll move on to our second part of this, where we look at the possibility of, are all things possible with some out of this world input? Right, now we come to the extraordinary. Can something out of this world affect our lives in a way that makes all things possible? I am not going to hide the fact that I'm 69 years old and have only had 69 years experience of this world, but during that time, and in particularly the last 50 years, I've been privileged to hear some incredible stories, and not just hear them, but actually in some cases being part of them. Now, I know if I went on to tell you some marvellous stories, there will always be people who say, yeah. And of course, many of the experiences I've had have been personal experiences to me, and maybe for my benefit, who knows, it depends how you interpret them. But I can honestly say, I've seen things that the scientists and the medical profession cannot answer. I've seen people riddled with cancer, completely cured and no sign of it in their body at all. And I don't mean over a period of time, I mean literally overnight. I've seen people healed from injuries to the body which the doctors have said are just impossible to do, and they've been healed. I've seen people's lives changed. I've seen my own life changed. I've seen family members' lives changed, and onwards and onwards. And in amongst all that as well, I've heard many stories from people telling me about the extraordinary things that have happened in their lives. Now, this is the section where you either believe it or you don't believe it. I can't make anyone believe any of this, but what I can do is try and lay some facts. So those things I've just told you, I haven't gone into great detail, but may well be striking a chord with you who are out there watching this video or listening. Maybe you've heard stories, maybe things have happened to you. One of the things I'm really concerned about is that perhaps once or twice a month, sometimes once or twice, even weekly, I get told or asked the question, Why does God not work in the world now? Why doesn't he sort this out? Why doesn't he sort that out? Why? Why do we have 2,000 years and beyond wonderful stories about God that we all know? The Noahs, the Moses, the Davids, the Joseph story, the birth of Jesus, all these wonderful stories. Then 2,000 years ago when Jesus was born, it seems to have all stopped and God doesn't work in the world anymore. Well, part of the reason I'm doing this video is because actually God does still work in this world. And I have to say, to my embarrassment, and I'm sorry if it sounds judgmental, but in the Old Testament and the New Testament, somebody took the time to tell the stories, somebody took the time to write them down, somebody actually shared these experiences, and we're not very good at that now. If I wrote down all the, myself included, if I wrote all these stories down that I hear, there'd be book after book after book, just like there is in the Bible, because that's what the Bible is. I think it's a collection of books of people's experience of what God was doing in their lives at that time in history. Now, you can say what you want about the Bible, you can say what you want about the stories, but these people believed this was what God was doing in their lives at that time. And if you look at the historical details that surround them, we can prove that a massive percent of the details in the Bible are in actual fact historical facts. And in amongst these historical facts at that time in history, whichever story you read, the stories that are being told are what people truly believed. Now, there are thousands and thousands of other documents that were written round about that sort of time. There are historians who wrote around that time, and they back up these stories. If we took this to another level and said we took someone down to the Jurassic coast and went round looking at all the rocks underneath, we would build on other people's stories, other people's research, and say, well, we know what this fossil is, and we know what this is, and we know this, building on other people's historical facts that they've delved into and identified what it is. Now, we can do that as well with the history of humanity. We can go through and see how our lives have been built up to today and what these stories actually mean. And there are also parallel stories where if you see a healing today, then the Bible tells us all those years ago people were reporting that their family, their friends or people they saw were actually being healed miraculously. Now, I know there is always going to be arguments here, and if you want to write in to either Facebook, YouTube or my website, all the details will be at the end of the video, and argue that, that's absolutely fine. I've heard many of the arguments, but what I'm really looking forward to is if you're watching this video and you have a personal story, let us know. Because that's what we're not doing now. I will ensure, without anyone's name or personal details, if you don't want them mentioned, what I want to do is get people to say, right, this is happening in this world at the moment. I have witnessed this in my life or someone else's life, and I want to share it. Wouldn't it be fantastic if we had thousands and thousands and thousands of people that we can actually share this and say to people, look, you say God isn't working in this world at this point. Actually, here's the proof. These are ordinary, everyday people sharing their story. Wouldn't it be great if it was millions? Because I truly believe there are millions of people in this world who are experiencing God's supernatural power now. So let's just pause slightly and go right the way back. There are a couple of passages of scripture I want to suggest to you to think about, and then if you have experienced these sort of things, please do get in touch with me. As I say, the website will be up in a moment on the video, and Facebook, email, whatever it is you want to contact me with, please do, and you have my assurance nothing will be upload it to any media without your specific permission. I just want to see if there are really people out there who can share their stories as they did 6,000, 5,000, 4,000, all those years ago. It's still happening today, these miraculous events. But the Bible opens up in its historical document in Genesis, and it said, "In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth." Now, how God went about that or actually happened, I'm not going to go into great detail now, because there's all sorts of ways this can be interpreted. But the bottom line is there was some kind of external power from God that can create. Now, if God can create virtually anything, including us as human beings, then surely anything is possible. If he can part water, if he can heal people, if he can create floods and then recreate the earth, anything is possible. And that's backed up in the New Testament. Anyone who's got a Bible and wants to look it up, just to make sure you know I'm not making stories up to back up my stories. In Matthew 19:26, it says, "With man this is impossible." So all those things we talked about in the first part about running miles and running faster and faster, all these sort of things, with man it is impossible, but with God all things are possible. With man it is not possible, but with God all things are possible. So, kind of closing this video down a little bit now, what we're looking for is, have you got a story out there that should be impossible? And that story you can share is possible because it's happened to you, or it's happened to a friend or someone you've seen. Please, people out there, share these stories with us, because it's not for me. I think I'm okay. I believe I've seen these things. But wouldn't it be wonderful if someone else could back up what I'm saying and say, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, this has happened to me. I know someone who was healed. I'd just like to throw just one little thing in here. I've also seen people who've had cancers and illnesses not being cured, and people have prayed for them and it hasn't happened. I'm not God. I don't understand. I don't have the control to do that. But I do believe God can, and I do believe one day it'll all become obvious why some are, some aren't, and whatever happens. The point I'm trying to make is that I have seen it happen, and it is beyond worldly understanding. With God, all things are possible. So going back to that question and statement at the beginning, all things are possible, or are they? All things are not possible for us as human beings, but with God intervening into the world, then I do truly believe all things are possible. God bless you all. If you have enjoyed this video and found it interesting, please like and share. That will encourage YouTube to draw other people in to watch the video. And if you found it really interesting and think it might be helpful to others, then please do share it. There's some great news here, and it'd be lovely to find out what other people think, what other people are experiencing, and to share it with us. You can be encouraged and encourage other people as well. Go to the Facebook page where you'll find the video on there as well, and you can comment and share your stories. And if you go to the website, there'll be people all over the world joining in the Bible study on there. This will be also on the website, and then you really can share your stories on there. The thing is, we've got to get this out to people that yes, perhaps in the human ways all things aren't possible, but with God all things are. And not only that, God is still working today, but we need to share those stories. So if you've got a story to share, or just want to encourage those who've shared the stories, please do get in touch with us, and more than anything else, like and share. God bless you all.